in the calm alone. Battle owns your tone, and justice in tone. Who got the diamonds? Who gonna find them? Who gonna find them? I wanna time them. Diamonds and guns, diamonds and guns. It's a wicked world that we live in. It's cruel and unforgiving.
Back to another hit from the 495 test range. Today we're going to be talking about mods. No, not the guys on the scooters wearing the suits listening to The Who. We're going to be talking about modding your pellet rifles. There's several ways you can do this. Today we'll be dealing with modding a CO2 rifle, specifically the Crosman 1077 here. This is probably the easiest pellet rifle out there to get your feet wet when it comes to modding. So what we're going to be looking at doing are several mods to this pellet rifle. There'll be 3 internal mods as well as 1 external mod, which is the magazine. It's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is glue the 2 magazine bottoms together, and this lets you get basically gives you a 24 round clip as opposed to a 12 round clip. It saves you a great deal of time when it comes to loading. Okay, so moving on from there, there will be some internal mods, but we'll be talking about that in part 2 of this presentation here. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're modding your rifle is to obviously perform your safety check. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is ensure that the weapon is on safe. Okay, and I can see that the weapon is on safe, it's verified. I have the barrel pointing in a safe direction, which is downrange. So that's the first step. Now the next thing I need to do is ensure that the magazine housing is empty. There's no magazine in there. Alright, I can also look into the chamber, the breech, and I can see and verify that there is no round in the chamber. The next thing when it comes to pellet rifles, especially the CO2 ones, is your CO2. The weapon will not function without CO2 or some type of gas. So we'll check the CO2 chamber by pulling out the CO2 stopper here. Again, keeping the rifle pointed in a safe direction, downrange. We'll turn the barrel down towards the ground, shake the weapon. Okay, no CO2 cartridges falling out, so we're clear. We'll just screw that in, okay, so we don't lose it. Alright, so now we've completed our safety check of the weapon. The final thing you want to do before you carry on with any of your modding is to fire off the action of the weapon. This makes sure that there's no CO2 and that there are no pellets in the rifle. Okay, so we fired off the action. We'll place the weapon back on safe and set the weapon down. Before you actually get into the nitty-gritty of the modding, there's some tools that you're going to want to have on hand. You're going to need several small-sized screwdrivers, Phillips, flathead, stars, square. You're going to need them all. Okay, you're going to need a pair of tweezers, as well as a little handy-dandy piece of magnet. You can cut it out to any size that you want. I just keep mine this size. It's pretty much all I need. And that's going to hold our screws and all of our springs. Alright, so remembering that our weapon is safe, next thing we want to do is make sure that we've removed all of our optics. Okay, our optics are off. I did it before starting recording, so we're good to go here. So the first step now into getting the weapon apart, alright, is to take a screwdriver and remove your 3 takedown screws at the bottom of your lower receiver. Alright, once you've removed all of the screws from the lower receiver, you can now separate the 2 portions of the rifle onto the lower receiver or the stock and your upper receiver. So we'll just set aside the stock. We're not going to be using it for any of the models. Alright, here's where you need some different screwdrivers. So here we need 2 different screwdrivers to complete our takedown of the weapon. Alright, so we're going to need a flathead. And a square. Alright, once you've taken out your screws, there should be 4. Alright, you want to place your thumb on the trigger, on the side of the trigger, and put a little bit of downward pressure with your thumb, and the your other fingers basically supporting the underside of your upper receiver. Once you've done that, slowly with the other hand, wiggle, I say slowly, wiggle the top part off. If you've done that correctly, you shouldn't have any issues with the trigger mechanism coming out. Okay, however, your safety will set those pieces aside. You need them for later. Now, before we go any further in our takedown, what I want you to do is grab some nail polish if you've got some kicking around, some paint, an etching tool, and you're going to need to make a little mark on your cylinder right here. Made my mark on the cylinder. I want to remove the trigger mechanism, which consists of your trigger and a spring. Hold that up here with a pair of tweezers so you can sort of see it there. So I'll take those off, I'll set them down on my mat. Along with that, there's a little pin that will come off. Okay? You take that pin, set it down, because you're going to need it again when you put it back together. So that's removing your trigger. From there, you're going to want to remove your hammer. So, in order to remove the hammer, okay, there's a pin in the center. Slowly pull it out. Alright. With your tweezers holding onto the hammer, set the pin on the mat. Slowly pull out your hammer and your spring. Once that's done, okay, then you can take out the sear. Okay, mine popped out when I removed my other equipment. So your sear will consist of a pin and a spring. Here's the pin. And this is the sear. The pin sits in the sear and rests on a spring. Alright, now we'll remove your gas tube and your cylinder and valve. Rotate your gas tube up towards yourself and then slowly push it out with your thumb. And then you just simply pull your gas tube out, set it up there with your old piece of magnet, and you're good to go. From there, remove the top part of your cylinder, your valve. Alright, it just rotates backwards. Alright, once you've done that, remove the pin. Okay? Set that down next to it. Now you've got your valve in hand. You have your hammer and spring. The next thing we're going to talk about in the next episodes are our mods. Okay? One of the mods actually happens inside of here. Alright, we'll be putting an O-ring inside of there. It's a simple O-ring you can buy at Canadian Tire or any kind of hardware automotive store. We're also going to be making a mod to the hammer by adding either a rubber washer or a vinyl washer, or adding an entirely new spring. Okay, that improves your trigger pull and improves the amount of CO2 that's released when you squeeze the trigger. Then what happens is, because you've now put an O-ring on the inside where there wasn't one before, you're now forcing almost all of your CO2 to hit the back of the pellet. So this will increase your FPS as well as the total muzzle energy of the rifle. So thanks for staying with us at the 495, and stay tuned for next week's episode, where we're going to get your mods done, we'll get your weapon back together, and we'll do some shooting, and maybe even blow some stuff up again. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, I'm reminding you that if you like us, show it on YouTube. Click the like button, subscribe, keep watching, and comment too. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. If you have an idea for a show, by all means put it up there in the comments, or you can email us here at the test range.